I hear the scrambling of a scratching big rat, and then I feel this massive weight just fall on my chest, and I hear like a rat oomph, like oof.
Hi, I'm Jeremiah. Welcome to the Wake Up Call podcast, where we talk all things sleep, wellness, and health. The Wake Up Call podcast is brought to you by Polysleep, the best memory foam mattress in Canada. Welcome to the Wake Up Call. My name is Jeremiah Curvers. I'm the host, and today I am beyond excited to have Dr. Patrick Owen to join me once again. For those who don't know, Patrick studies ancestral health and has studied ancestral health for quite a long time. You also have a Ph.D. in human nutrition, which makes you an expert in fields I love to talk about because sleep and nutrition is connected. And I want to start with the following question, because it actually happened to me, and it still happens to me sometimes. And many people think that by sleeping 8 hours, they're going to be tip-top shape. Yeah. So if that happens to you, stick to this episode, because that's what we're going to talk about today. So why, when I sleep 8 hours, I'm not necessarily feeling great the day after?
Yeah. So the modern recommendations are sleep between 7 and 9 hours. And honestly, that's a good way to go, just to make sure you get all your bases. What we're trying to get here is 4 to 6 sleep cycles, each one lasting 90 to 110 minutes long. But it's the quality, not the quantity, that matters. And we're seeing more and more research that's saying that's consistency. That's way more important than the quantity. So you're sleeping 8 hours, but did you do everything you had to do in those 8 hours? So what I see in my practice is three main things. One is digestion. So if you're a late night snacker, digestion takes up a lot of energy. Like, it takes so much energy that little pie chart where you see where your energy goes. First, you have your BMR, your basal metabolic rate. Then you have your PAL, your physical activity level. But then there's a slice called TEF, the thermic effect of food. And those are calories that are going specifically to digestion. So as you're digesting food, there's two things happening. One, you're using up energy to digest. So you're not actually asleep. Even though you're asleep, you're spending that energy digesting that late night snack rather than repairing and restoring. And secondly, digesting increases your metabolic rate, which increases your body core temperature, and that disrupts your ability to stay asleep as well. So digestion, I recommend people not eat an hour, depending on who you are, an hour, maybe 2 hours before going to bed, and you're going to sleep more profoundly and deeper. The other thing is that the two major sleep disruptors in our modern society, which is artificial lights and psychosocial stress. So this is what we call junk sleep. So like, you're just staying in bed, but you're tossing and turning, and it's not restful. Yeah. And I think we'll address those two topics today, because everybody's going through that right now.
You're absolutely right. And you know what? I think quantity was there. Quality was not
quality
necessary.
Better than quantity.
Yeah. And I think you're right about that. I might have went to bed for about 8 hours. Did I really sleep well for 8 hours? No. I'll blame my cat this time. He decided to go on a crazy night cycle, which woke me up a couple of times. That probably didn't help. But like many people, I am a victim of TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and these beautiful shorts where I get to learn a lot of things that I love to know, but not necessarily at midnight or at 3 a.m. or how bad it is.
It's really bad. In fact, a lot of people, and I'm guilty of death scrolling as well. Not often, but man, and when it hits and I'm down that rabbit hole and all of a sudden it's 1 o'clock in the morning, you're like, how did this happen? There's two major things that are happening here. One is that dopamine trigger, the fact that you have like little instant, squirts of dopamine because of that little pleasure. And you actually think that you're relaxing, but you're not. So it's the content, number one. And number two is the screens. The screens that are on modern screens are much higher in short wavelengths, higher resolution, crisp. Those short wavelengths are more towards the blue side of the spectrum, and blue light is the most powerful wavelength to stimulate wakefulness. So it's the screens. Even if you have night shift on, it still kind of stimulates.
They have so much lumens now. You look at that screen, it's just so bright.
Oh, like we grew up, right? According to the cathode TV screens, and they're like this. No, the screens today are completely different.
I remember.
They're like crisp, high res, really high in blue light. And those blue light basically tell us our brain, wake up, wake up, wake up. So this is why when you're finished death scrolling, you don't pass out. You're still like...
Your brain is still sending signal that you should be awake. It's normal because of all that exposure to light. What is a decent amount or a reasonable amount of time you should set that aside before going to bed in a practical world, right? Let's go with a practical world application.
So first I have to say everyone's different. Like some people will be less affected. Some people are more sensitive, but a good rule of thumb is at least an hour before bedtime, introduce what I call the Amish hour. No screens, no electronics. Yeah. At least an hour. Try for half an hour. And if, make that a habit, then just increase the time. But yeah, a lot of people, they have just that 1 hour at night. And there's a term that I love because I went through it. It's called revenge procrastination. Basically, it's a person who gets up and it's go, 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 right? Get the kids ready for work, get dressed, make your lunch, make the kids lunch, then bring them to school, go to work all day, come back, make dinner like this, finally get the kids to sleep, and finally we have our time to ourselves.
That's a race.
And you have an hour, maybe 2 hours before you should go to bed. And in those 2 hours, you're going to pack in so many pleasurable things like your favorite episode with chips and a glass of wine and things. And yeah, that's the hard part. Yeah,
that is.
Does that sound?
You know what? Not all the time, but when I have a day like that, and then on top of that, I say I have to go to the gym. These are the day when, I'll try to incorporate a cheat meal and probably a glass of wine guilty.
Yeah. You know what the best way to combat that? Because a lot of people develop revenge procrastination, myself included during the pandemic, is to introduce some me time early in the day, like gym time. Especially for people like you and I who do like to lift weights, who are more prone to put on more body fat and carb cravings and have a sweet tooth kind of thing. Getting the stuff done earlier in the morning works. So get up an extra half an hour earlier.
Go for a walk.
Go for a walk, meditate, work out. It's you time. And at the end of the day, you'll find that your brain is more satisfied with your day because you've already had your little mini vacation.
That's so true.
Yeah.
That's so true. So about an hour would make a huge difference. Another thing that I want to touch upon, which is something I became obsessed with. That's why I created Polysleep. We were talking about that before we started recording. But I didn't realize at the time that the three things I was obsessed with when building the brand are actually common themes that are very important. So I remember when I had my double herniated disc, after going out or being released from the hospital, I called my friend who happens to be our partner in producing our foam still today. And I said, I don't know anything about mattresses, but I'm sleeping too hot. My mattress is too soft, so my hips hurts even more. And right now I can't move, so it's a disaster. And then on top of that, if I happen to sleep on the side, I'm okay. But if I were to have something harder, I wouldn't feel my arm anymore. So I really became obsessed when building our mattresses about heat dissipation, body alignment, and pressure points. And you made me realize that these goes way before my herniated disc, basically.
Yeah, what your product is like so highly aligned with an ancestral sleeping architecture, if you will. So let's tackle temperature, because that's an important one. I mentioned light, and light is probably the most powerful Zeitgeber. I think we must have mentioned Zeitgeber so many times on this podcast. These are environmental cues that reinforce the fact whether it's time to go to sleep or time to wake up. So light is a Zeitgeber for wakefulness. Temperature, a cool temperature, it's a Zeitgeber for sleeping. And so important is that, your body temperature is 37.4 degrees, and it basically lowers down for maybe 1 or maybe 2, depending on the person, degrees Celsius. That was way before we had thermostats and blankets and everything. And that was an important part of your sleep
routine and cycle.
Exactly. So any kind of disruption in that aspect, we've evolved ways to compensate, which explains why a lot of people like to stick out their legs from underneath the blanket, right? because it dissipates your core temperature out from the extremities, your hands, your legs, your face. That's why it's important. There was a study done in a nursing home that shows that every degree higher than 20 degrees Celsius is associated with an increased prevalence of waking up in the middle of the night. So every half degree increases the chances of waking up more and more and more. So staying cool during the night is very important.
I've heard 16 to 19 degrees Celsius is
ideal,
around the ideal temperature. It might be cool for some people, but if you give it a try and you have a nice blanket, I can guarantee that you'll sleep better.
Go for the blanket. As long as your face is exposed, your arms, your legs, you'll do. Everyone's different. But yeah, give it a try.
Interesting. What about the other two? So alignment and pressure points.
So alignment is really, really interesting because we didn't have memory foam mattresses in our ancestry, but we had rigid materials, straws and natural fabrics and everything. So we find that mattresses that are too soft are actually not good for our spinal alignment. So what you want to find is a mattress or a product that's middle of the road, which is like yours. I was happy to see. So in today's world, we do demand a certain level of comfort. You're not selling reed mats, but at the same time, we were designed for a little bit more rigidity for spinal alignment and
that body alignment that is required to make sure our muscle can relax without being completely crooked in our bed.
Exactly.
Because that's what happened when I often go to a hotel. The bed's going to be so comfortable.
So, you just sink in.
You sink in. It's like a marshmallow. It's amazing. The day after, you wake up and you took 20 years.
Yeah.
Your back is just shot.
Yeah.
You need to do yoga just to get out of bed.
Yeah.
And that's when you realize too soft is certainly not good.
What's really important I gotta mention is that culture and adaptability are huge factors in this. For example, if you go traveling to, parts of the world where they don't have mattresses, you end up like in small tatami mats, you're not going to sleep well for the first couple of days, but eventually you're going to adapt.
Yeah.
And then when you come back to North America, vice versa. So adaptability and culture are huge. You got to sleep and your body's going to do whatever it can to do the best it can with what it's given.
Funny story that you mentioned that, and she's going to recognize herself. A person I know really, really well just went to Korea for a trip, backpack trip. And the first 3 days, they booked a traditional Airbnb, so to speak, with traditional Korean housing and culture and all that. And she told me in the description, it was written, the mattress were tatami. But her definition of tatami was what she was seeing in Japan, which now even brands like Tempur and all that, they make it's quite comfortable. It's memory foam. It's thicker. And when she went there, she was describing me as, the thing to roll the sushi that's made of bamboo.
Yeah, that was it.
And a rice bag for a pillow. And she said that was the hardest trip I went through because the first 3 days we barely slept. It was just so hard. Oh. It was just so hard. And sleep will affect pretty much everything.
You remind me of a story when I was doing my Ph.D. research in the jungles of Papua New Guinea. All the huts are raised off the ground. Obviously, you don't want predators because a physical threat was the real thing. And so families would all sleep together as a source of security. This is a strategy because we are at our most vulnerable when we sleep. Now, the family sleeps together, but as a Canadian, I'm not used to having 6 other people sleeping in my room. And so I really had a hard time. After 2 days, I spoke to the family and I said, I'm really having a hard time. Well, grandpa snores and grandma farts and they said no problem. We'll put you in the other room. And I was like, oh, my own private room. But then there was a real physical threat. Now there's no lights whatsoever, right? There's no electricity in the jungle. It's dark, dark, dark. And in the rafters of the hut, I hear a fight going on between 2 massively sized rodents. I could hear them squeaking and scratching against the walls. And I am wide awake, eyes open, pitch black. I don't see a thing. And I don't have any blankets. I'm sleeping in my t-shirt and on a flat reed mat on a wooden floor. And all this is sound, and all of a sudden I hear the scrambling of a scratching big rat that's trying to not fall from the rafters. And I'm thinking in my head, oh my God, it's going to fall right on. And then I feel this massive weight just fall on my chest. and I hear the rat have a oomph, like a rat oomph, like oof. I freak out. I remember standing up with so much force that the rat went flying against the wall, and I hear it hit the wall and then down on the ground and then scurries out the door. And I did. I'm like, what the hell? And the one of the family members like, hey, you want to sleep? Yeah, I want to sleep with you guys.
The reality, I mean, that will not happen very often here.
But that's the way it used to be. That doesn't happen here. It used
to be, yeah.
And it really gives us a lesson because we were designed to form strategies, social strategies, and using light and temperature and all that to be safe, right? For example, today we don't have 6 people around you, but we do know from studies on longevity that people who sleep with a partner live longer. So that's safety while you sleep. It could be a cat. Not your cat.
Not that specific night. Usually it's pretty cool, but that specific night was,
yeah, but it offers a sense of security.
Yeah.
And your unconscious brain, which is at its most vulnerable while it sleeps against physical threats, feels a lot more secure, which is why weighted blankets are so popular, especially in children with ADHD, which is an anxiety-based disorder. It mimics the fact that you're feeling comfortable and,
it's true. It's true.
Burrito.
That's so amazing. So one thing we did this time that's very interesting is we looked at some of the most searched questions around the web. And there's this one that always come back. And, I know there's different archetype and different types of people. But if we were to average things out, is there an ideal time to go to sleep?
I can't say that. I would like to say before midnight, generally. In general, melatonin peaks between midnight and 1 o'clock.
Okay. It's going to be different.
Yeah.
Or could we say that one trick that could be applied is to perhaps, especially now in the summer, try to be more exposed to sunlight and experience sunset?
Yeah, that's a great idea. Absolutely.
Because that's one thing I realize in the summer, I tend to be able to more easily adapt my bedtime routine than in the winter. Because in the winter, it's just, you wake up, it's dark, you go back home, it's dark. So you have to figure out what and how you want to do it. But in the summer, just that alone allow me to tweak that a little bit more, but I agree.
It's really important to calibrate your circadian rhythm. It anchors your circadian rhythm because what sunset is almost it's the same thing as a sunrise, which is a change in the levels of blue light. So you're seeing a red or orange sunset, and those colors are the complementary colors of blue, which means that it's visible white light minus blue, and you perceive orange. And so the diminishing levels of blue light tells your brain that it's going to get sleepy because blue light inhibits melatonin. So as soon as there's no blue light and it's dark, your melatonin should be right. Blue light is a melatonin killer. Now, this is fascinating because your eyeball, so on your retina, you have these specialized cells that detect blue light, right? They're called intrinsic photosensitive retinal ganglionic cells. It's a very complicated name, right? But they produce a protein called melanopsin, and this protein is only produced when it detects blue light, and it goes down to the biological clock, their circadian clock in the brain, the suprachiasmatic nucleus. Boom. These cells are way more resistant to injury compared to any other retinal cells, your rods, your cones, your optic nerve, which goes to show that the ability to detect blue light is more important than the ability to see.
That's crazy.
Blind people, that's how blind people know how to wake up. Yeah.
Wow.
So blue light is a very, very powerful message. So what happens in the modern world is that, we watch the sunset, beautiful, you're feeling relaxed, you're winding down, let's go inside and watch a show. And then blue light, and basically your melatonin's cut, and it's like, whoa, the sun's not down yet. And then you're just basically prolonging the day.
So it's funny, but I would invite everybody to try that. First day of vacation, if you have a week or two coming up, try to do the complete opposite. So what I'll probably do is have a good meal early, probably a drink or a beer or something. I like it, socialize. But then I'll make sure I can watch that sunset, read a book, run myself a bath, and I will sleep like a baby.
Beautiful. That's the way it has always been. What you're describing is the lost art of winding down.
And even if your phone tells you to do so, it's quite hard when you have a couple of meetings the day after.
Oh, it's hard.
I get it.
It's always hard.
Amongst all the disturbance or the patterns that could disrupt your sleep, a lot of people, we know what it is, that beautiful picture when you open your eye and it's 3 a.m. and you're like, oh no. What would be the most common reason people experience that? This is one of the most searched questions on Google.
The most likely is circadian rhythm imbalance. You have a shift. Your body, the people who do wake up between 3 and 5 a.m. are very likely the same people who have an afternoon slump between 3 and 5 p.m. Basically, your brain is saying like, all right, time to go to sleep. But you're at your office, just like, no. So you take a cookie or an extra coffee or take a glass of water or a walk, whatever. And then you're so tired. You're thinking, man, tonight, that's it. 9 o'clock, I'm going to bed. I'm so tired. But what happens? You got that second wind, the wired but tired. And then now you're waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Your body says, okay, we're done. You're like, no, I'm still sleeping. So there's a mismatch between your day and night cycle and what your brain is considering the day night, because you are messing it up with artificial light or stress or temperature or something, or inconsistent sleep or erratic sleep architecture.
Next episode, we're going to cover some of your sleep hacks.
Yes.
So it's accumulation of little things that will really make a difference in the quantity and quality of sleep you can get, rather than a one-size-fits-all solution.
Absolutely.
But there's definitely some hack we can have there. So I would really invite everybody to tune in for our next episode. Dr. Patrick Owen, thank you so much for joining me today. And I'm looking forward to our next conversation.
Me too.
Thank you so much for listening to The Wake Up Call. If you like what you heard today, do not forget to rate, follow, subscribe, or perhaps leave a comment below. A new episode of The Wake Up Call drops on the third Wednesday every month. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss a single episode. For all of us here at the Polysleep studio, I'm Jeremiah Curvers. Until next time.